Any particular comic books you guys want to go through, or a particular comic run that you guys would want to talk about? There'll be
right now.
Wars and the Brood.
I don't know anything about Brood, but Secret Wars you can definitely do.
Not that many X-Men books. Actually, it's almost a year of X-Men books.
What I have noticed is that without the comic market had became so much about flipping books and the next hot book and all this stuff. Now it's only been a week since I haven't been able to get any comics. There's no news. Okay, there's no articles. These guys, nothing. I was like, wow, you guys really played yourselves. That's how little you care about comic books. This was all about pump and dump, adrenaline. It was never about, okay, let's, here's some books we can actually collect. And no, this was about, hey, let's see what the latest thing comes out, and let's see what the next new character is, and the next variant cover, and all this stuff. I was like, man, you guys played this up so much for hotness that we're going to have at least about a month before you can go to a store and get a comic, unless they find some other way to go about doing it. And they've got no articles to run. They usually have like a top 10 books. No, there's no top 10 books, nothing. And it's been a week. They ought to be, I'm glad this happened to a certain extent, because it does show just how shallow the whole thing became.
Yeah, you know what? I'm glad you brought that up, because it's kind of crazy that even when you're looking at the big comic book sites and stuff like that, the ones that usually have articles on all things coming out, all comics, the artists and stuff like that, that they are also they have stuff. And you're right. There's nothing. There's no article. Nothing is out there. And you're like, wait, there's no artists doing things. There's no other projects that are running forward. It's bizarre. The only article that I see going on a regular basis is when are they going to put the movies on, or when the comic stores are going to. That's it. But nothing in terms of, hey.
Or the death of comic book stores. The comic stores are closing. Yeah.
But what about Kickstarter? People are starting to put stuff up there. I mean, it's been going for a while.
Those guys are still going. The Ethan Van Sciver and the God King, the Richard Meyer, they're still selling their Kickstarter's still going. And if you mail an order, there should be some comic news, not just necessarily for the market, just in general. Just say, hey, where we're at. This is not just Marvel told the artists, pencils down.
And it is just so amazing, man. It shows you. It's like those whole Hollywood that you used to always say about the old Hollywood publicity departments that the studios used to pay all of them, put all these articles in the newspapers and the trades. That's what Cal is basically saying. If the comic companies aren't there and providing, having their publicity guys or media guys push articles with the trades and stuff like that, nothing would happen. And we're not talking about the trades. You got Bleeding Cool, CBR, dropping hints here and there about different things that are happening. Shocking. I think they're going to need to develop something else in the interim. If they're all sitting on their hands waiting, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? They're going to lose sight that there's a market out there that may be willing to take on some digital comics. That may be willing to take other forms of comics,
Right now, it seems that comic books became about everything except reading them.
Yeah.
There's nothing about reading. I'm like, okay, you can still put out digital stuff. I mean, you have to come up with some sort of plan so you don't ace yourself, and there's no reason to release the print books. So, you have to have that in mind as well. But right now, there's nothing about reading them. It was about, okay, this stuff came out, and what would be like the hot book of the week, and what would be the hot variant cover, and it's all up in mobile. Like, look, pump it and dump it, And then you had the collectors over there. I guess supposedly you would always think the collectors were at the center, but it seems like more like the collectors were on the flanks of whatever was going on. Because now, okay, there's no news. No books are coming out. So what happens to collecting? Nobody's collecting anymore. Nobody's buying books anymore. There's nothing that these guys have to. There's nothing. You go to any of these sites. What is it? Speculation and Invest, or Newsarama, comic books, or
CBR.
Yes, you go to CBR, and I'm like, okay, so what's the news? When are comic books coming back? Comic books have been coming out since 1938. We got nothing to say. There's no collecting going on whatsoever.
Nothing.
Yeah, I didn't realize this. I didn't realize the whole industry was literally like, it really was an American industry. It was living paycheck to paycheck. It was living week to week.
Well, it seems like a very set fan base. I mean, physical comics are about $1 billion a year. according to Comic-Con, and it's about $100 million for the digital stuff. And so, you know, you have to feed that market. That's the comic book stores. You got to feed. That's where your money's going to come through. The same way like the theaters, you have to feed that market. None of the movie theater companies or movie companies are going to say, hey, let's just totally skip the whole release schedule so the movie theater companies can't make money. They need that because that's going to help pay for part or all of the costs of making these movies. You know, that's the deal. The same thing goes with the comic book stores. These guys are going to buy your stuff. They're not going to be returning your stuff. And, you know, it's a guaranteed thing as long as you give them product to give to the people who are collectors and readers alike. And, but like you said, it's a shame, man. It's just,
so here we are at the CBR, and there's basically, outside of Superman 1000, it's mostly TV news.
Yep, mostly TV. I even have wrestling too. I was looking at that earlier.
And Good Girls. Anybody watching Good Girls?
Yeah,
Well, I'm watching it. Oh, we got bad
for the cops. He's working for the cops.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of wild. You know, yeah, it's like they totally revamped the page. This was a huge comic book thing, and it's just totally gone. You know? So, I mean, I'm not sure what to make of that. I think it's also, I think we've touched base on this in other arguments when we said that these guys in comic, they are really like behind the eight ball, not behind out, they're behind the trends on how to get their things out. They're used to a specific market. And Petey and I have argued about this. The newsstand, I mean, not the newsstand, we argued about the fact that they depend on the comic book store market so much. You know, I'm trying to say, well, before they had other outlets, what Petey was saying about the newsstand market, which was, while they were allowed to return the comics, they were available in a lot more places so people could see the comics, right? And get into the comics. You know, I mean, I don't want to say words in your mouth, but, you know.
No, I was just saying for the casual reader, especially like me as a kid with my mother or my father, you go past the newsstand and you're just like, I want this. Can I get it? All right, we'll give you one. And this also keeps you quiet on the ride wherever you're going. You're like, oh, I bought this thing. I'm like, oh man. And I'm all into it. I can't wait to get to the next one. But when I thought about how many times I look at the actual books I was buying, it was very haphazard. It got to a point where I was just missing one issue a month. So it was like I'd have one X-Men, and then I had the issue after that, and the issue after that, and that sort of thing. So but not having it, we discussed that Marvel kind of doing Marvolution and basically saying no more newsstand, and they just thought that there was money off the table with the returnability, that sort of thing. And that's the thing. I don't think that's returnability might work for Marvel, but it's not going to work for IDW or what's that thing, or Image. Like they basically are a movie. Like, hey, we made these books, and hopefully the movie guys will look at it, and it'll sit on the stands, and hopefully people will buy it. But they're basically gonna have the movie tie-in, so people in Hollywood would pick it up. But then if they say, oh, now you gotta give us those books back, you guys have to go for free on these Image books. Like, you guys aren't getting no money for it. So.
I mean, and is there, Cal, is there anything in collectibles, digital, or anything in the comics that could be done other than having the physical comic,
I'm not, again, the drive that made most guys read comics when they were kids is not the drive here right now. So the whole collectability thing for me is a secondary thing, because we used to go through this when we were kids where we would have skip week and there was no comic that came out that week. So what you might do is, okay, you go and you be like, what, there's nothing new this week? You might look for a back issue or something of that nature to fill the void of that particular week. So for me, this is like one long skip week that we're getting ready to go through, but nobody's talking about, hey, if nothing new's coming out, but check out this particular series. You may not have read this, or check out this. You may not have read that. These are particular good things that you can go back to continue reading and continue your interest in comic books and the format of comic books. Instead, it's, again, talking about Thor's 5 funky body Thor's 5 funky body parts or something of that nature. But there are no articles saying, look, now's a good time to go, and here's some really good stuff that you may not have read. Did you read Simonson's Store Run and you liked it? Well, great. If you liked Simonson's Store Run, you'll also like this run by blah, that sort of stuff. Did you read what is it? No, what's that other run? I forget the writer's name, but it was the last 6 issues of Thor Disassembled at the end of the first series. It's like nobody's making here's some good stuff to recommend in terms of reading, and would be actual collectible too. Okay, if you want to say some first appearances along those lines, they're not promoting the art form of comic books. They're like, oh my God, what do we do now? No new comics. You've got well over 80 years of comics that you guys could be promoting right now to fill this particular void, this long skip week, and it's not happening. Digital comics are never going to become collectible. That's never going to happen. Okay, when it's digital, you can make 15 million copies of this damn thing. You can make each one a variant. It doesn't matter. Once one guy has it, it's a million copies at the end of the day. But right now is a good chance for these guys to promote the art form of comics and remind guys what comics were and why we love them so much. The whole getting into them in terms of the reading, the art, all of that stuff. And I just think they're making a big miss at the end of the day. Eventually, comics will be back in the stores, but they have shown their big weakness is, again, they're like a paycheck to paycheck thing. If we don't have something new every week, we don't have anything to talk about. And there's plenty to talk about.
So, are there any particular stories you think they should be talking about?
You're asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you. And
yeah,
Cal.
I just mentioned one.
And Petey also. Any particular stories that you guys think that should be?
Yeah, I just mentioned one.
No, I got that, like the stories, the Will Simonson, but I'm saying, is there anything else?
I think they should do Empire. They should do Empire. They got Empire going. They should at least dwindle it out on Twitter and have the artists say, or whoever, have some moments and just say some stuff about it. So there's something that they're looking forward to next. I'm not saying I'm the one for it, but at the same time, there's Empire. What's going on at DC at this point? They had a series.
They're doing a whole deceased thing they're going on with.
Something else that was no. They had the whole map, the 5G stuff,
yeah, that's going on for a while though.
So I'm saying that they haven't done the new timeline yet. They had Dark Knight, Death Metal. That's the thing. Capullo's putting stuff on Instagram. He is doing that, but it should be a more DC thing where it's how we should get these guys going live and not do, I think, because who is it? Gail Simone was teaching you how to do comic books and stuff like that. And he was done in a way of trying to be like the kids. But this is more promoting, saying, hey, here's some pages, here's this is the plan. Try to, muster up some energy into it and, just to keep the people going. And then at the same time, I guess Brevoort is doing that on what's that thing? On Twitter, where he says, "Oh, the She-Hulk's going to have these unpublished pages from, the John Burns run or something like that." But that's not really getting the big buzz going. Get the big, huge buzz happening. Get on there like D Nice with here's my pages, here's some art pages.
All right, so interesting. All right, interesting. So,
well, one of the things Petey said in regards to 5G, you could start that story now because you're not going to tell 5G. Okay. When you start 5G, you want to talk about this was the foundation and these are the antecedents, and then you want to get right up and running with the new guys and tell that particular story. But right now, you could literally have a weekly almost like a comic strip series where you put it up on a regular basis, detailing and outlining this is the history of 5G, especially for DC because they're usually pretty good with their history. And you can these are this is what happened, this is where it starts, and it's the year. And you can unfold that over a longer period of time. And you don't have to worry about a loss of money because that's the other thing where they're in. They're like, well, look, if we put out these stories, are we going to lose money? If we start telling these stories, we're going to lose. No, you can do that without having a worry about a loss of money. And it's new content at the end of the day if you don't want to, if these guys aren't going to talk about anything new. Marvel, I'm not too sure what the heck they would do because they're all over the place for me these days. But that's something you could definitely do. The indie guys for me are a non-starter because, if you, I don't know if I've ever read anything by, Ethan Van Sciver. I don't know if I've ever read anything by, is it Sciver or Skyver?
Skyver.
I don't know if I've ever read anything by, Ethan Van Sciver. So, if he's publishing some comics, I'm like, that's all well and good, but I'm just not there anymore where I'm going to go throw down some money for some experimentation, because comic books they haven't broadened their appeal for me. So I pretty much read the stuff that I like. So if if it's an indie guy, you're great. If you have a following, those people are going to read your stuff regardless, but that's not good for the overall market. So you want stuff that's going to draw as many people in as possible. DC and Marvel are pretty much, along lines to do that. Image is, again, little indie comics, over here. So you got, if you like this guy, if you like that guy, no problem. But it's really the bigger companies, the big two, who really need to, do something to lead the way, because they have the biggest characters. So if you could do something right now, entertaining with Spider-Man or with Superman or Batman, along those particular lines, to keep the interest in reading and the art form going, that this hasn't just died, because we can't push stuff out week to week. This is still literature. Okay, we can't go to Barnes and Nobles, but you can still read a book if you want to. It shouldn't be any different with the comic.
I mean, so basically you're saying like what they used to do back in the old days, like Alexander Dumas, when he used to put his Three Musketeers in a newspaper and, as a serial, or Dickens did it for his Christmas stories, or even when we used to do that here in the 1950s and 60s when they were doing serials. And yeah, and they do it in the comics, the Sundays. I'm all with that. But I mean, getting back to 5G though, don't you think there may be a change with the fact that video is no longer around?
No, they still like that idea. They didn't like video. They didn't like necessarily the way he was handling it, but they still like that idea. Oh, one correction, it's Dumas, not Dumas.
I'll say Dumas, is that my teacher said it, and I will rock with that.
It's French. It's got to be Dumas. You don't pronounce the S.
Dumas in French, yes.
Here we're at Ethan Van Sciver's site, and he's doing live right now, and he's been doing lives daily on YouTube. Like he's still going. The same with Richard Meyer. They're promoting their stuff, and what do we see? Is Marvel having something with getting me to go to this? Is DC doing any of that? They're just like, oh, everybody shut down. We're all shutting down. Everybody, vacation like freaking Chevy Chase or something like that. Look at them. They're still working. They're still talking about stuff, and they're still promoting whatever they're doing. And there's stuff to order. There's still stuff. There's still the Marvel website. I guess DC Access, because DC Access has all the comic books on there. And then you could also you don't have to show much. You can have someone, showing.
Yeah, but you got to promote the reading. You got to promote.
They have the comics on. They like when I was at Mars has the setup, and I saw the DC Access. Oh, he used to have it, and you could see the comic books, and I'm sitting around and just like, this is on screen. Like I don't think.
Yeah, but you know what to look for. If you're one of these fly-by-night flippers.
No,
okay,
I'm not, I know what you're saying. I'm just saying to you that they're doing the work, and that's the work I want to see. I want to see some Marvel and DC people out there promoting the stuff they can. That's all I'm saying. That's
a good point, Petey, because you're right. Marvel and DC should be doing just the way they have their guys at the cons talking about their stuff and promoting their stuff. We've seen all the big artists out there: Frank Miller, Art Adams. We've seen, just tons and tons of people. They should be doing that. Say, hey, anybody who's currently working, like other people who are working from home, anybody, they should be able to say, hey, you have to also work now too. Put an hour in on Instagram or an hour in on YouTube or whatever on a live show, and they should be able to put something like that up. You're right, Pete. That's a very good point. I like that. Big thumbs up to you.
Yeah,
and so
I got it. Yeah.
Okay, you know what? Then I take away my thumbs up. You Jersey boys just never know how to take a good compliment. But that's why you guys are in the mess you're in.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, I don't know. That thing. That was my statement is just in agreement with Cal, because it's like nothing happened in Marvel, DC, or even the comic sites except for who is it? The Bleeding Cool, and they're torching them on these other YouTube sites. So it's like we need something up in there. But ultimately, most of these people, including Bleeding Cool, have been more the naysayers and more this is getting canceled, this company's canceled, that's gone, this is gone. So I think ultimately nobody really knows how to go the other way.
Oh, you mean be positive?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, or try to be like, all right. That's. I mean, ultimately, the idea of what the DJs are doing is that, hey, this is a tough time, but we're gonna play music and then you can enjoy it. Not to say you're gonna get the same enjoyment by someone posting, here's some comic books, blah blah. You're not gonna get. It's not the same thing. But I mean, I enjoy listening to the creatives, and they still have creators who are working with them. See if they can get them online to talk about stuff in this downtime when they're home. And then they're also nice. I always find it nice because I've looked at a couple of interviews. I think it was we had a Steve Bissett. That's one I've been watching, but it's like 3 hours. So I'm only he's only at the beginning of his career, and you get to see him in his house. You get to see him talk about his beginnings. They did the same thing with who is it? Dave Gibbons, and see if they can do just smaller things like that to say, whoever the existing talents is, at DC and Marvel are, because I think Ethan Van Sciver has an interview with Jason Fabok. That's how you pronounce his name?
Yeah.
And he talks about how it's an older one, but like they could do that with the people that are hot. What's going on now? Please, somebody do something.
Okay. Well, thank you guys. I think that's very interesting conversation we've had here. Cal, anything else you want to say before we sign off? PD, anything else to say before you sign off?
No, he didn't get to finish. Let him finish. You just said Cal, then you said, what do you got?
He said no. I knew what he was going to say, so that's why I said that.
You didn't know.
I knew.
Oh, gosh.